And thanks everyone again for joining. So today is actually session 92, my bad in the typo there in the front. So it's the extinction of POTS and what to do about it, part 2. So we've got today's date, we've got plenty of attendees. This is a hot topic in the market. There's some deadlines in the near future that are either interpretive or hardline, and we'll discuss some of that today. So I've got a quick polling question for everybody, and as I always do. So the first question is, how important is POTS extinction to your clients and your prospects? On a scale of 1 to 5, please answer. So yeah, from our perspective in our practice, it's important, not necessarily critical, but the more we turn up the volume, the more they realize, they have to do something about it. And we're actually starting to see, at least locally in the New York area, vendors starting to be proactive, especially Verizon with delivering FiOS now more so than before. So let me just close out the poll here in about 1 second here. Yep, so let me end the poll. Thanks everybody for participating. I'm just going to take a quick snapshot, which I do every week. And let me share the results. So the results are on a scale of 1 to 5, right? We can see the results. Yep, 5 wins, followed by 4, followed by 3. So it appears as though it is important to, extremely important, to your clients and your prospects, which is great. So let me go to question number 2 here. And the question is, how do you see POTS extinction as a consulting opportunity? No opportunity, small opportunity, opportunity, middle of the road, large opportunity, or a significant opportunity? Please vote. And let me just about finish this out. Okay, everybody, thanks for voting. Let me end the poll. Let me take a quick snapshot. And let me share. And the results are large opportunity wins, followed by medium opportunity, followed by a tie between significant and small opportunity. And then, of course, 2 saying no opportunity. So that's kind of interesting. So thanks for that, everybody. I think that is telling about where the market is in this particular topic. So a recap, thank you so much to Eric Kraft, who was General Manager of Enterprise Connect. He talked about hot topics and Enterprise Connect 2022 highlights. The Sctc will be there. Barb, you want to give a 2-second info on our participation there? Barb Grothe.
Yes, I'm here. We are Enterprise Connect. We're going to have our booth, and I want to remind everyone it is March 21 through March 24th, and we also, the hotel expires as far as the discount goes on at 6 p.m. on Friday. So if any of you are thinking about going and wanting to stay at the Gaylord Palms, we do get a discount, and if you room with someone, it's only like $170 a night. So hope everyone can attend.
Yeah, thanks, Barb. Appreciate that. We'll have a booth as well on the floor. So, and we have plenty of us NCT consultants doing presentations too. So it should be fantastic. And it will be, by the way, both virtual and on-site. Some of the sessions will be on-site only. Some will be both virtual and on-site.
And VAC
so,
presenting.
Sorry, what?
And VAC presenting.
Right.
Oh,
and we have.
Sorry, Fletch. Of course.
That's okay. We have social media flyers being put together with the 9 consultant speakers. And then we have all of our keynote speakers from Enterprise Connect on the VAC flyer. And the keynotes are Google, Ring Central, Zoom, and all 3 of those are Sctc VAC members, and they'll all be presenting keynotes. So we have flyers going out for social media on the VAC as well.
Fantastic. So yes, my apologies, Fletch. I definitely meant the VAC, of course, presenting as well.
Tony, how are you this morning? Actually, it went pretty well, but we still don't have full connectivity and comm yet.
Steve, can you mute them?
We're able to
I can't find them.
That their
phone number 13102.
There we go.
Yeah, there, they muted.
Okay, great. No, I muted them. Okay, thanks. Okay, so 2 famous quotes: the internet will fade away because most people will have nothing to say to each other. By 2005, it will be clear that the internet's impact on the global economy has been no greater than a fax machine.
Customers that despite our grand plans that we had with Novi, they have decided to exit the payments business. They just felt that the scrutiny was too high for them and they had to go back.
It's Anita.
Anita.
Anita, I can't even find.
Competitors pull all stops when it comes to pricing.
Up at the top.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah. Okay, let me keep going, sorry. So that was Paul Krugman, renowned economist in 1998. One more, what can be more palpably absurd than a prospect held out of locomotives traveling twice as fast as stagecoaches? A little bit older. That was the quarterly review in March 1825. So, we're always talking about technology and, wrong predictions. It's interesting to see how wrong these individuals were and how, these sessions themselves actually put us on the right track. So today we have, again, Denise Monroe, our president and owner of Cost Reduction Group, and Chris Burgee, vice president of UMA. So this will be very interesting. Next week, we're going to have Fernando, geez, I forgot how to say his last name, Egia, and he's global vice president of at TalkDesk for AI specialized sale. So we're going to be talking about AI next week. Should be very interesting. So we've got a new VAC member, and that's actually Google. So congratulations for joining the group, and we're really looking forward to having you. So Matt, you're up.
Awesome. I thought this was next week for some reason, but I'm prepared to do it. So
right.
Thanks, everybody. I'm Matt Clare, for those of you that have not met me before. Longtime Mitel product manager and product marketing lead for contact center specifically. So I work very closely with Dave Clardy. And as I joined the Chrome OS division recently to build out a contact center partner program, I saw a big opportunity. We're very focused on growing awareness right now, and thought it would be a great opportunity to get us involved with the Sctc on this side. So if you jump to the next chart, this is just a really quick overview of what we're doing here. And actually the next one's even fine. This is really a full kind of cradle to grave view of what Google's doing in the contact center and communication space. So many of you have probably heard over the last few years about things like Google Workspace with video and Google Meet, or things like Google Voice, which hit the market about 10 years ago. Most recently, you would have heard about Google Contact Center AI. Many of the contact center partners and UC partners in the Sctc VAC are actually partners of ours there. But the recent announcement, and what I came to kind of take and champion, was the Chrome Enterprise Recommended Program, which is really working closely with our communications, VDI, and contact center partners to optimize Chrome OS and Chrome devices like Chromebooks that everybody's kind of come to know. Ensure they work with our Works with Chromebooks peripherals, and then really differentiate and help our partners differentiate on Chrome OS compared to them going. Of course, we work with Mac OS X and Windows, really helping drive things like security concerns in contact center environments, drive agent productivity, and probably most importantly, in this kind of COVID world we're still navigating, really power some differentiated remote working experiences as well. So that's my quick elevator pitch for the day. I am looking forward to speaking with you all in detail, and we'll back to you.
Thanks, Matt. And, just from my perspective, the Sctc has been a longstanding group for years, and to have Google now as a member, I think is very significant. So thanks again, Matt, for applying and being a new VAC member, and we look forward to your participation.
Yeah, pleasure.
All right. So Dave Clardy is actually on a mission presenting today. So we're going to have Fran Blackburn, Sctc VAC past president, give us her word today. Fran.
Thanks, Steve. I'm jumping on the Enterprise Connect bandwagon, and we do have a big focus there coming up in 2.5 weeks. We do have 9 analysts and consultant speakers, multiple speakers from VAC members in addition to the keynotes. So watch for those, absolutely. The Sctc booth is 101, so definitely come by, put your card in for the draw. And as far as the VAC member booths on the show floor, go by, introduce yourself, let them know you're an Sctc VAC member, get that visibility out there. Then on another side, if you have ideas for the SCTC, please reach out. The marketing and website committees are very strong, always open to ideas. And the more closely you get engaged, especially for the new VAC members, then you'll have more visibility. So please join a committee. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Fran. Great stuff. And Denise, I know you're going to be up in a minute as a speaker, but put your presidential hat on real quick and share with us. Denise, are you on?
Yeah, that mute button kind of disappeared on me. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay, great to see everybody this week. Thanks for turning out. I just look forward to having a great session here today and a lot of discussions. So if you're not a member, these are the kinds of things that we do on a regular basis, and we would love to have you participate as a member in the organization. So if you want to find out more, you can reach out to Barb Grothy and she can put her contact information in the chat. These are the kinds of things that we as professionals can exchange in terms of information and so forth that are only going to ultimately benefit all of our clients. So we would love to see you join us.
Thanks, Denise. So, okay, Denise, you're up.
Okay. All right. So this is where we started the last time with our fireside chat. And I will say this whole conversation has kind of taken on a mind of its own. So we're going to kind of tamp down some of the rumor and so forth about this and try to get to the nuts and bolts. Okay. So last summer, I did a No Jitter article about this conversation called the decommissioning of POTS, meaning, what's going to happen, in the eventuality that, you're no longer going to be able to buy copper services. Right. So then Steve Layden, I'm doing this for his benefit, he started calling it the death of POTS. So I had to find some kind of visual to describe the death of POTS. So here you go. Next slide, please.
Sure.
Then I asked my teenage daughter to try to, go ahead, to draw me a picture of what the extinction of POTS looked like. And this is what she gave me. So this is a little tongue in cheek, but we've gone from decommissioning to death to extinction. And I think that is a little bit overblown in terms of the actuality of this situation. There's not been a mandate by the FCC, but if you see there's the FCC order that basically says that you don't have to provide POTS anymore if you don't want to. I mean, we've talked about why this is happening. The networks are, infrastructure is aging. It's hard to get parts, get repairs, and technicians that are not retired, basically, to serve those. So it's really becoming difficult for carriers to make money on it, basically. So you will feel the impact of this in many parts of our industry, from ILECs to CLECs to middle mile providers, resellers, etc. So you're going to start seeing that POTS services are going away because the FCC pretty much said that you can make it go away. And if any of you saw the listserv today, J.R. Simmons actually offered some more detail with regard to this. That was really helpful. Thank you, JR. And so what we're finding is it's not been mandated, but definitely we're starting to see it go in a direction of eventual, I think, extinction to the degree it can. Okay, we may still find it in pockets here and there, but for the most part, it's not been mandated. But also, they don't have to provide, ILECs don't have to provide competitive pricing to CLECs and so forth going forward. So, okay, so other carriers have had varied responses on how to approach this. So we talked a little bit about what has been announced, how carriers are going about approaching this subject and so forth. And the truth of the matter is there's still 41 million POTS lines out there in use, and that's an estimate, but essentially it's out there whether we like it or not. I think it is really, I don't think that we will necessarily see those all go away in the, in the next 8 months or whatever, in August, for example. And so, anyway, so it's been a stable solution and for many services. And so that being said, there's not going to be a one size fits all alternative to POTS. And so that's where we're kind of trying to position this conversation with Chris's contributions today. Next slide, please.
Sure. Oops, sorry. Hold on. Okay, there you go.
Okay, so here's announcements that I have come across, and some of you may have seen some other things. So I'd love to see anything you have to share. But Verizon Business POTS is being discontinued. No new sales, moves, adds, and changes, etc. AT&T's internally announced the end of life in November of 2020. So they're basically not selling TDM services anymore. And I got that from one of my AT&T contacts in the executive branch. AT&T's filed notifications with the FCC that they're not going to restore copper services that have been destroyed by natural disasters. And they've also introduced a product called AT&T Phone for Business Advanced, which is essentially a fiber solution to approach voice and data on the small business end. CenturyLink Lumens announced the copper end of life in these states noted here, and Frontier is approaching end of life announcements based on geography. So as you can see, it kind of almost looked like it was this cryptic approach to this. And as we're learning more and more about this, we're finding that since it's not mandated, every company seems to be approaching it its own way. So that, with that said, I'd like to turn this over to Chris. I have seen an emergence, and many of you may have seen it too.
If you want, I can give you a call.
Sorry, is everyone muted,
I got it.
Steve?
I think I got it.
Okay, thank you. But I'm going to turn it over to Chris, because what I've seen a big emergence of is a lot of chatter about this topic, and it's given companies who have alternate solutions kind of a stepping stone into opening up conversations about what customers are going to do in response to the sunsetting, if you will, of POTS services. So Chris and I have been working together to develop some ideas and approaches that we are seeing in the industry. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'd like this conversation to be healthy and open, and so we can, all learn from each other in this as well. So I don't have another slide, do I, Steve? I don't think I do.
No, that's it for you.
Okay,
Denise.
great. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Denise.
So Chris, just
Yeah.
before you get started, so we're dealing right now with a client that has 350 sites, POTS in every site, and they're looking at an alternative to facilitate that. In fact, they're testing equipment right now that is not working properly. The generic term, I think, is POTS in a box, with the understanding, and Chris, I'm sure you'll dive a little bit deeper in a moment, but it's the idea of bringing two circuits together. It could be a cable modem plus an LTE or whatever the other, could be DSL, could be really anything. But the idea is to have a redundant, bandwidth-driven solution with a box in front of it that actually can bring it down to up to 4 POTS lines. So Chris, I'm going to give you the microphone, and you're all set.
Yep. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And you can hop to the next slide.
Sure.
So thanks everyone for folks that have joined the previous sessions. We are going to cover some slides that we've shared before, but I thought that'd be beneficial for new folks that haven't joined us for previous discussions. So as we alluded to, the FCC is kind of set in motion the ability to deprecate the twisted pair network. And Denise is right. It's kind of a hodgepodge of different approaches from different carriers. We've been seeing the same thing with it. Probably more important is the lifting of the restrictions on pricing. And if you go back 2 years, when we first became aware of this issue, we were seeing POTS lines in the kind of $40 to $60 a month range. And that's steadily increased. And after this order, we're regularly running across customers paying $80 to $120 a month. And we've seen some really egregious examples. So there's an HOA that has a pool, and local building code mandates that they have a phone there for emergency purposes. They were paying $160 a month last year, and they just went up for renewal. And this is AT&T. They doubled it to $360 a month. And we've seen some other examples where customers have gone out of contract. There's a Hilton here in Austin, where I'm based. Their POTS line cost them $800 a month to serve their elevator. It's just getting a little bit ludicrous, and that's starting to garner the attention of many organizations because they're looking at their bills and wondering what the heck is going on and what alternatives do I have. And then ultimately, at some point in time, they're going to have to migrate anyways when the upstream ILECs wind up deprecating services. And this is impacting the CLECs too, by the way. And so for some of them, they've been notified that lines will be shut down by the end of the year. So they're in a scramble to figure out what they're going to do for their customers. And others, they're already starting to feel the pinch on price increases. And so it's driving them to look for alternatives in the market. The other thing that I do want to point out is, and this was kind of touched on earlier, is the quality of the copper network has definitely degraded significantly over the past decade. Many of the ILECs don't want to maintain the equipment and make investment in the old COs. A lot of folks, technicians are retiring, so they don't have the same staff in the field to be able to go out and service locations when there's weather-related issues with rain, for instance. And so that's only going to continue to be more and more of a problem over time as they try to get out of running these networks. All
So
right,
Chris, Chris, sorry, just to pause for a second. That's a very, big point, because I think all of us kind of, who have grown up with POTS think that, POTS are consistently okay. And they're obviously the quote unquote most reliable form of transmission for elevators, right? As well as, overflow for PBXs and of course, alarm lines, et cetera, the most reliable. And obviously that's not really true.
Yeah, and if you really want to dig into this, there was a study that the California Public Utilities Commission chartered with a third-party firm to look at both AT&T and Frontier in market, and specifically around the quality of the network. It's a very, very long, verbose document, but the genesis is the quality has declined, and they expect that to further decline over time too. So there's some tangible data research out there around what's been going on.
Thank you.
All right, next slide.
Sure.
So Denise mentioned this as part of her kind of introductory comments. There are still millions and millions of POTS lines out there. The data here lags a little bit, and this is kind of the best source. But at the end of the day, from a business perspective, somewhere around 20-ish million lines we think are out there. And this is going to atrophy over time as folks migrate away. And it won't always be replacing POTS with a wireless POTS solution. So you look at commercial burglar alarm systems, for instance, you can deploy a communicator that operates over LTE. But the reality is customers need a lot of guidance around this. This is not something that they pay attention to, these types of devices on a regular basis, and they're not aware of all of the options in the market. And that's a fantastic opportunity as a consultant to come in and help guide them through what the ROI can look like, what types of solutions exist in the market that can help them solve these problems. But it seems niche-y in concept. There's just a ton of these devices out there still, and it's a sizable problem. All right, next slide.
Sure.
And so you look at the types of devices that are still hanging around leveraging POTS lines. They generally fall into three categories from what we've seen. The first is life safety related. So traditional fire alarm panels, elevator phones, those blue light public safety phones. We've run across different CO2 sensors that are deployed in environments as well. So it's a whole smattering of devices that have very specific requirements in some circumstances. You look at fire panels, for instance, and what you must meet. And so that raises the bar on the types of solutions that you can use that will meet compliance or local building codes or fire marshal sign off. The second is kind of general security and monitoring devices. So commercial burglar alarms would fall into this, access control systems, SCADA. We've seen gas stations that use POTS lines, believe it or not, for gas pumps. Again, a whole smattering of devices. And what's interesting is commercial burglar alarm systems have actually supported LTE communications for quite some time now. And this was a little bit of a shock to us in talking to the dealers. Many of them don't want to convert customers over to an LTE enabled panel. One, because of the cost to upgrade the panel, and two, because they fear that it'll create a decision point for customers where they might actually move to an entirely different panel and that dealer loses them. So there is a desire to just replace what is the POTS line with an alternative solution, and the customer doesn't need to know the difference. And then the final area is kind of essential phone lines, so fax machines that are higher priority in a hospital or pharmacy, for instance. We've even seen folks that are still running on-premises PBXs. They want POTS lines because they can't upgrade the PBX to support SIP, and they want an enhanced reliability story, so it's not just an ATA over their existing internet connection, but more resiliency with dual connectivity, for instance. But they're also price sensitive, so they don't want to deploy full SD-WAN. So that's another category of devices that fall into use case for POTS. The other thing to watch out for as you get into regulated devices is the fire marshals and NFPA 72 in particular. One of the things that's stipulated there is having a managed facilities voice network. And so that largely dictates, and NFPA is a little lagging behind where the tech world is, but that largely dictates you need a fully managed connection, so not operating over the internet. Now, that's ultimately the discretion of the fire marshals in each of the states and municipalities. And one of the other challenges there is they're not staying up to date with what's happening with the copper network, and they don't understand technology as well as we do, for instance. So that also presents a situation where educating the fire marshals will help with ensuring compliance and explaining why these types of solutions will meet all of their requirements, and again, what's happening in the market around copper overall.
Chris, just one other comment too on these fire alarm panels, blue light, safety phones. I think the market, at least on the hardware side, has been very slow to respond to replacing with, an IP type solution.
Yep.
They're still delivering their solutions on, for assuming a POTS integration or some degree. I know I was working on a blue light project not too long ago, and they were just announcing, IP, maybe about a year ago. So it was kind of interesting to see how, again, they're not keeping up with where the market trends are going. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, Roberta here. One of the other things, we don't have this happening in Canada yet because we're not getting forced off of it. But in the POS side, the banking sector, the Canadian Banking Association, they are increasing the monthly POS charges on POTS lines and trying to force everybody to go over to IP.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
It's going from it's not the telcos, it's the big banks, and so it's going from like $20 a month for the POS to $45 to $60 if you're on the legacy dial-up X25 network.
Oh, wow, that's a
So they
significant increase.
So it's and you got somebody that's got 5,000 stores or whatever. We've got about 5 million circuits that are being affected financially. So that's for those of you that are in that space, check out the financial POS because that's an opportunity too to save a lot of money.
So Jane Leno go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, just a quick question. So on the whole private network, public network type thing, have you seen VPNs that are actually over the public internet to be considered as a private network or a public network?
In the conversations that we've had with some different regulatory entities, they don't consider that a private network. Now, I think kind of my read on what's been happening is folks are deploying over the internet to serve customers with fire panels, for instance. Nobody's really significantly inspected this or challenged it. Again, it's kind of left up to the discretion of the fire marshals, and they don't understand technology. So I do think they're skirting around it. And where this would really rear its head is, let's say you have a fire in a building, internet goes out, fire panel doesn't indicate that there's a fire, loss of life, loss of property happens. That would certainly start to raise eyebrows around how all of this is getting deployed.
For sure.
And that's where I think LTE ultimately is the answer.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
It's come a long way, baby.
It's
LTE.
come a long way.
Quickly.
Quickly.
So Jane Lano has a quick question. What are the replacements suggested for Verizon or other Centrex users? Because Centrex is still out there. The ones that are out there, if they're large business, they can be 3,000 to 5,000 endpoints.
Yeah, I mean, there's a variety of options for that use case. You can take an ATA, for instance, with any UCaaS provider, frankly, or with SIP trunks and convert that in. That's been available for a long time. We obviously have a solution that operates with LTE as well to enhance this. There are some other vendors in the space too around POTS replacement, companies like Data Remote, Epic, which was acquired by Granite Telecom, and a company called MarketSpark out of San Diego. All of them will position for kind of PBX POTS replacement as well.
Excellent.
Up to the next slide.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so the challenges that we've seen around the space, the first of which is customers have been frequently unaware that the copper network is going to get sunset by their upstream providers. Now that tends to be more rare that they come to us with that circumstance. Usually what happens is they've looked at the price of the POTS lines and they start canvassing the market for alternatives. The second is these safety devices. I mentioned they carry very specific requirements for compliance. There can also be legal liability too if you're not approaching this properly as a provider. The local fire marshals ultimately will approve this. And there may be other local building codes or ordinances for safety related devices that aren't fire panels. So the pool phone, for instance, is an example. A lot of municipalities will regulate that you have a phone there for it. So you have to pay close attention to the types of devices out there and how to meet the requirements of it. The risk and liability, again, we want to make sure that customers are approaching this properly. And you can imagine a circumstance where take a small business who may not be aware of what's going on at all, and upstream provider turns off the POTS line, that panel stops communicating, and most insurance policies to get underwritten for businesses require these types of systems, so their insurance policy could be at jeopardy in that sort of circumstance. And that's, we really want to, it's easier to target large organizations who have big IT departments and they stay abreast of this. It does worry me that all of these small businesses out there just have no clue what's going on, and targeting them to understand, inevitably what will happen in their environment, in their business with POTS lines is going to be important to make sure we cover off everybody.
So Chris, let me just pause for a second. So Roberta and I are working together on a pretty large project, and we just interviewed the client the other day, basically on the risk management side, and they don't really have a whole lot around liability or I should say processes around emergency, safety, et cetera. So it looks like it's becoming an entire process kind of engagement, not just technology. Roberta, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's gonna. It is a space, and helping all sectors work in that area to help them educate what they should be doing and the processes and procedures, and to monitor compliance on an annual basis, right? So it's not just about the technology. The only thing is, good thing we got Martha, as part of the Sctc support, because also we're not getting pulled into the into the legal compliance, right? It's just more the process and policies. But even the policy should still be reviewed, that you recommend and work with the client should still be signed off by both the client's legal counsel and somebody else legal, because as I'm learning, there's so much differences also with the different states, right? So that's the real gotchas. So it could be a very focused, very specialized practice that you add on, but again, it's got to be people, process, and technology.
Yeah, and Chris, this is actually a project around E911, so we're finding it, very interesting that this parallels exactly what you're saying, So I think the whole safety factor and liability factor, I think, is a real way to, get the client engaged or the prospect engaged. I don't think anybody wants to be liable.
Well, and the small business with the POS, right? Check out, add that too for you guys for the bank, for the different bank fees. Because $20 to $40 of a difference in jump that can pay for the technology investment, required to
Okay.
do the migration. So it's another way to pay for it really quickly.
I think what'll really be interesting is the liability lawsuit when somebody proves that because of the fire, the POTS line was out of service and I could have gotten out over LTE, but you wouldn't let me put a system in that would do that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, Fletch.
You're making me
Yeah.
put in technology which has got potential failure built into it.
Right.
Sorry, I'm going way ahead. Sorry, Chris.
Yep, just a couple more slides
to
after
your,
this.
okay, to your point, Fletch, this is Denise Monroe. To your point, I have come across fire marshals that say, listen, we know what we want, but we know nothing about the technology. We need someone to help us understand the technology enough to make sure it fixes our compliance issue. Like saying, we know POTS is POTS, and that's always been that way. How do we then make sure that this new technology, that we understand it enough to to see that it is compliant? Like they need someone to help translate the technology for them.
Yeah, and the problem is you got to teach them so much before they'll even understand the value behind it, right?
Right. So my quick suggestion there for you guys is anybody that wants to expand that area of their practice, go join the police and fire and EMS associations and start to speak at their conferences. That'll be the best way to get, infiltrate, because you can't go department by department because you got 7,000 of them in the US. Right. But you can hit them at the association level.
Yeah, again, if anybody wants to help putting a presentation together for NINA, APCO, I can help guide you through that because it's desperately needed. I don't have the credentials to present that. You do.
And Fletch is real fun to present with, as I can vouch for from past sessions.
So Bill Doolittle, you have a quick comment, right? In the chat bar there.
Yeah, part of the issue with the NFPA stuff is that they presume that there's a local central station that's monitoring all of these alarms and all those redundant connections. And, in older cities, take Boston, for instance, they own their own alarm panels, and that transition has been kind of difficult for them. But, in today's market, if you want to talk to ADT, their central station is out of state. So they're already advancing their technology to be able to monitor, alarm points all over the world.
Yeah,
So
and same with Rapid Response does this for a lot of alarm companies too, and it's out of state for most of them, right? They've centralized it elsewhere.
Yeah, so if you explain to them, the fact is that there's an IP link in their alarm central station monitoring, it kind of pulls them over the line.
Thanks, Bill. And then Julie Bernhardt, you have a comment, right? Which I think is very important. So you want to share what's there? Julie Bernhardt, are you on?
Yeah, here I am. So,
Okay.
Again, I just think that it's always layers in telecommunications. And one of the things that I've experienced is I do a lot of disaster recovery for customers and planning. And, only the last time I checked, only emergency responders, it's like 5 categories, can register an LTE to work in the event of a broad disaster. And it requires codes and, all kinds of nonsense and continued registration. So some legislation is going to happen to broaden the, who can register for that. And I think some work needs to be done to make it simpler for those devices to work. Because
that's the FirstNet, First Responder Emergency Network, and there is.
It's not just the First Responder Emergency Network. It's also just the regular, the federal program for the disaster recovery. I have documents on this. If anybody's interested, I can post them. But the thing is that everybody assumes this wireless is going to work. And when we're talking about things that, insurance companies, they're, any chance they have to get out of doing something is probably, you're going to check that box. Your alarm didn't work in this period. and there was a problem, and therefore you are liable because we require you to keep that. So again, I think it's a complicated issue, and that the technology sector has to walk up to it and decide how to deal with it as a class of services, not just this little one-off, you know, you can wiggle it this way or that way, but as the whole class has to be redefined.
Well, thanks for that. So, Chris, over to you. I'm looking at the time here. I know you still have some. Go ahead.
So a few other quick points on this slide. So there are also a wide array of devices with different types of communication methods. So you look at commercial burglar and fire panels, for instance. About 80% of them use DTMF and contact ID, but there are still a significant portion of devices that operate with modem communications, which presents another issue that you have to look at when evaluating the solution. So pay close attention to that. And then a great opportunity for consultants, we found that a lot of customers need assistance in identifying inventory of the POTS lines. They just haven't been tracking this, so they can figure out what needs to be converted. And then you'll also want to pay attention for customers that have lots of devices. Having a centralized method to manage, monitor, be notified of events will be critical, especially if there's a failover to LTE, for instance, or the device goes on battery. And then the last thing is installation around this is much more complex than just plain up UCAS, for instance. So you're getting into old environments with old wiring that may be unlabeled. And so it really requires guiding customers through that process so that they have an elegant experience. And oftentimes that could be one visit that's a site survey, and then you're coming back the second visit to actually install and migrate over equipment. All right, next slide.
Sure.
So there are a wide array of devices that exist out there. The market's been pretty fragmented with companies that are targeting specific use cases. So for fax machines, for instance, we've been able to deploy ATAs for a long time to serve those devices. There have been some ATAs that couple together some wireless connectivity with it that can serve those devices. As you get into life safety systems or emergency devices, you'll see different solutions.
You bring up your own Joe.
That was yours. That was.
No, I didn't go in there.
You didn't go in there?
No, I didn't.
I'm sorry. I can't find who it is.
Who it is.
Go ahead.
There we go. Okay. So there's a variety of different solutions, you know, with the UPS built in or separate UPS, for instance. And then there's categories of specific devices like communicators, for instance, that kind of modernize panels and operate over LTE. There is a whole set of issues too. I don't know if anybody saw this with the 3G shutdown that AT&T was doing. The fire panel and burglar panel industry went into panic mode because there's tons of panels that use 3G, and AT&T actually wound up signing an agreement with T-Mobile to allow roaming onto their network in the interim. All right, so last slide I want to leave you with just to underscore the installation challenges, and you can hop to the next slide.
Sure.
Is you're going to go into all sorts of environments. So here's some installations that we did. So there's a pool phone. We actually deployed deep in the basement in Boston. So it's a company that owns apartment complexes. We had to serve the elevator and we had to serve the boiler room. So expect all sorts of craziness from a wiring perspective, location perspective. This is something we have to really pay close attention to as part of a process with customers to ensure that this goes in a very seamless fashion. And that's it for me.
That's it. So Chris, why don't you just talk about your device, you know, because again, or maybe the response from, you know, the community at large. I know that we've had some side conversations and it's amazing the interest that's in this particular space.
Yeah, it's been surprising to us too, to be honest. We've actually had CLECs and aggregators coming to us. There's customers, obviously direct customers. So we first came across this opportunity about 2.5 years ago and recognized that we had a lot of pieces in the portfolio to go solve for this. We've been doing VoIP obviously since 2004. We've had our own LTE solutions for fixed wireless. So we basically took components from our portfolio. We built hardware as a company and consolidated that into a single device called Uma AirDial. And UMA AirDial was designed to solve for the most stringent use cases around life safety systems, for instance, but you can plug just about any analog device into it. We actually emulate a POTS line to devices. So from a modem perspective, for instance, we don't get in the path and interpret the data. So they don't know that we're anything but a POTS line. There is LTE connectivity embedded directly into the device as well. You can support up to 4 ports or 4 devices on each unit. Each AirDial also is standalone and has its own LTE connectivity, all fully cloud managed. And one of the other approaches that we took is with T-Mobile, at least, we're starting with them. We have cross-connected our network. So we have private connectivity exiting T-Mobile directly into our data centers. They're incidentally co-located in Equinix. So we get a fully managed connection with this too, which is great for life safety, also benefits other devices. And the last thing I'll leave you with is we wanted to make pricing really, really straightforward for customers. So it's completely turnkey, unlimited calling, unlimited LTE for this purpose as well, and starts at $30 a month.
Hey, Chris, quick question.
Yeah.
If you've got 4 ports on that device, do they all have their own TN?
They do. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I know sometimes callback is required for the device.
Yeah, and so we'll do hunt group support. The PBX use case surprised us. We've had a lot of people asking for that. We didn't really anticipate that, to be honest. So we'll do hunt groups on there, ring down circuits, for instance. And we've gotten weird questions from some of the CLECs around, can you modify the voltage on individual ports as well? Because we've got these archaic, wacky devices that are super old that need different voltage. So we can do that too. And for us, it's fully vertically integrated. It's our entire stack, hardware, software, cloud on it. So it gives us a lot of latitude to adapt to these kind of odd scenarios that are popping up with devices.
Do you support a ring down? That's pretty cool. That's innovative.
Wow.
I think that one thing that this conversation has also uncovered for me is the level of complexity that this is going to create for your customer. And the reason I say that is that there were so many things that POTS served well, elevators, alarm lines, et cetera, that now could be served by more than one solution. Yeah. So if inventory was an issue before, and I mean that by saying, do you know what every POTS line is used for? Then how are you going to manage this going forward? If you, for example, have a different solution for every application. So that creates an opportunity for consultants to help make sense of that for the customer.
Absolutely.
In addition to all this education that they will need.
How large do your systems scale, Chris?
Our own?
How many ports?
So we do 4 ports in a box. We've actually prototyped high density boxes. We just haven't seen the demand. Gotcha. So there's no limit in how many you can deploy in an environment, and we serve about 2.5 million users on this runs through our core cloud platform. So we serve about 2.5 million users today.
So you just stack the 4 ports. Okay.
Just stack them up, yeah. And we did 4. So we debated, right? Do we do 8? Do we do 2? We picked 4 because the average number of POTS lines we were seeing at most locations was 3 to 4.
Okay.
So, Chris, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
The average POTS line would go for miles and miles and miles and miles and worked absolutely fine. How far does your service go? Is it a few hundred feet, a few thousand feet, half a mile?
Yeah. So, from an LTE perspective, so that Boston example I'll give you, we're down in the basement, concrete, metal, brick, all that. We had full signal strength in the basement. We can get pretty far from a tower too. So this is not like a fixed wireless use case where I need a lot of throughput on the cellular front. So we can actually, if we get negative 118 RSRP, which is pretty poor signal strength with not a great SINAR, it still functions just fine for us.
And how far is that?
So on low band, you can get 10, 15 miles from a tower, but there's enough towers now that, the coverage is really good. And here's kind of a proof point with T-Mobile's network in particular. We're engaged in an opportunity with a very large retailer in the US. They have about 5,500 locations. T-Mobile did analysis on all of their LTE bands, coverage characteristics, and they could serve all but 85 locations.
So your POTS in a box basically will go 10 to 15 miles without a problem.
Yep.
So then how come a Verizon, AT&T, and a Frontier and everybody else just doesn't get those boxes and put them out on the poles and start servicing all these customers and just replacing them and bringing fiber into those boxes and start?
Yeah, I don't know
regifting a
why they
brand new
haven't
service
either.
there.
Yeah, to be honest,
Right?
it's like AT&T's almost stuck their head in the sand around all of this.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, they
No.
seem to be happy to let this go, which is it's kind of baffling to me.
To me, it comes down to physical maintenance and guys with spikes climbing poles to maintain a product. They can get rid of it. So, have you done any testing from the box to the device as far as distance? Its voltage, you should be as good as a POTS line.
Yeah, we should be. I'd have to ask engineering. I'm sure they've done some testing there. Most often with customers we're deploying with, they're actually putting the box in the info.
And the biggest drop you have in a POTS line is the REN, right? The ring equivalency number. And that's what we use to shock, like we talked about earlier, the old fax machines needed a higher REN number to go and shock them to let them know to wake up and answer the phone call. And that may be the only thing that might be a little bit less as the mileage or length goes down here. But that would be about it, I would think.
We use that to teach rookies that there is voltage on the line. Hold this.
I want to pull up from my office
I
to your
gotta
house
go,
there.
but I just wanted to share one other idea for you guys. From a direct marketing perspective, would be to go after the big property managers that are doing multi-commercial buildings, so that you could market to them for their clients, and then so it's just another way that you can get to a few people that can influence a whole bunch of people. So food
I
for
love
thought.
it. Okay. Well, hey, we're just near the top of the hour, so a big thank you to Denise and Chris today. And again, welcome Google to the family. We look forward to having you, Matt, and everyone from Google there. And thanks, everybody. I tried to get as many of the questions checked, and hope to see you back again all next week. Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye
Take
now.
care, Chris.
You too. Bye.